with you, Tim Pandasius with you, and we're quiet for the moment, but we're waiting on this big line of thunderstorms.
All right, we've been talking about 2 rounds of storms. Round 1 went through earlier this morning. That brought a widespread wind, damaging winds along and east of I-45. That zipped on to the north, but now our focus is going to be on something that's developing well to our northwest this evening, and it's a line of potent storms that's really getting going along into the west of I-35.
New severe thunderstorm warnings just popped up here northwest of Austin. We were taking a look at some of the upper level products there and finding some wind gusts in excess of 70 miles an hour with that estimated by radar. And that's the type of threat that we're facing tonight. This is going to be between midnight to about 4 a.m. where this line comes through here. Straight line wind damage is the biggest severe threat.
Yeah, frequent lightning as well. We've got a query here on just this line. Last 10 minutes, up and over 300 strikes of lightning just within this area. Several of these cells are warned with severe thunderstorm warnings, but aside from that, it's going to be the gusty winds as well. As David was mentioning, we'll throw up here what it looks like on our velocity product, and that shows us which direction the air molecules and raindrops are moving relative to the radar site. And you can see some bright colors in there that David's highlighted. Those bright greens, radar actually indicates that some of those are packing wind speeds up and over 70 to 80 miles per hour at last check. Let's see if that's still relevant in some of these spots. 73, yes, we've got 65. So certainly some of that could be reaching the ground. This is pulling from the radar side, I believe, out in Killeen. Yeah, there it is, the radar
Not
scanning
too
there.
far
Yeah.
away from this. This is probably only 800, 1,000 feet up at most.
And some of that with the heavy rain getting forced down to the surface.
And
so.
that's the thing. So you've got winds aloft, but the rain transports those winds aloft down to the ground, and that's where you'll get your strongest winds with the heaviest rain. And that's why the rain transports the winds down to the surface. And that's just a kind of a good idea of what is coming our way as we head toward midnight and beyond tonight. So there's that line of thunderstorms. You mentioned all the lightning. I see a couple of flash flood advisories in effect as well. Yeah, line's only 216 miles from Houston, Galveston right now, so it's making good headway tonight.
Yeah, and something that you brought up earlier, David, is kind of this front is getting a shove from another feature that's going to kind of speed it up and get it here a little earlier.
So this has been fascinating to monitor in the weather office this afternoon. This is a 6-hour loop you've got up here?
It is.
So initially we saw this line develop here in central Texas, and it really didn't show a whole lot of eastward movement. Notice how it sets up and then it kind of holds still, and then it pushes off to the east. It's getting a shove from this lobe of energy coming around the base of our upper level trough. And so what's happened is it created thunderstorms, and then that little cool pool right there formed. It's a meso high. So there's a little mountain of air back behind this push, and that is shoving, that mountain of air is shoving and accelerating everything in our direction, and that's why we're getting such strong winds, straight line winds. It's just getting a shove from the mid and upper levels right in our direction.
And overall, the atmosphere looks very chaotic when you look at it regionally, because we've got that area coming in from the northwest, dropping southeast, but then you've got clusters of activity and thunderstorms that are almost moving from south to north directly. That all has to do with the upper air pattern, right? And we were kind of mesmerized by this earlier because it's a really well-defined trough or dip in the jet stream that you'll see here in just a second, and it's slowly pivoting off to the east.
So here's the upper level wind pattern, and it absolutely mirrors what we've seen happening today. That northwest flow coming out of northwest Texas and New Mexico, and then it actually has been scooping these disturbances out of the Gulf and lifting them north across East Texas and Louisiana. That's the setup. This is the driving force. And so this right now is in the process of transitioning to the east. This is helping to give our line of thunderstorms a big push from behind, and that's one of the ingredients that are giving us this straight line wind threat tonight as the storms rumble through.
And it's also setting up a pretty good shear environment for us as well. We've got the winds out of the north to northwest, well aloft, and at the surface they're coming in kind of out of the south, southwest, or even southeast at times. So that's providing a little bit of a spin in the atmosphere already. But we're not so much concerned with rotating cells or a tornado threat. It's really going to be the straight line winds as we go through this event, David.
And one of the tip-offs to the idea that we're going to have straight line winds as a big threat is the shape of the line of thunderstorms as it approaches from the north and west. And that is continuing to suggest that we're going to have a bow echo, and the bow echo means straight line winds.
Right, and the models really show this quite nicely. So here we are at midnight. This is an hourly model that comes out every hour, so it gives a little bit of an update. but it's still showing the same general trend of that bowing, or it's like pushing out of the line out ahead of the actual main feature.
So think of this as a bow and arrow. So it's shaped in a line, the leading edge is bowed out, pull back that arrow, and that gives you the direction of the winds. And so we're expecting winds to gust out of the northwest as that line comes in. And you saw we're seeing those radar estimates of 50, 60, 70 miles an hour just above the surface. And that means we have a chance of seeing wind gusts like that in many spots across southeast Texas tonight.
And here we go, fast forwarding 2 hours up until 2 a.m. We're now seeing the line of strong winds and heavy rain, frequent lightning pushing into our northwestern cities and counties. Now by 3:30, another 90 minutes later, it is in Harris County moving into downtown Houston.
And you see this sometimes, you get a bow here, another little section of bowed out go here, so your strongest winds would be to our north and then right across the heart of the Houston area around 3:30.
And it's a fast moving system because here we are at 5 a.m. Most of it is pushing along the coast, and then by 6, 7 o'clock, it's all gone and offshore. Likely before the sun comes up, most of it will be wrapping up.
So if you live in an area where when you get gusty winds, sometimes you'll get power outages. Tonight's the night when we will likely see quite a bit of power outage, at least the threat of it. With the first round earlier today, we had, I think, 50, 53, 56,000 without power for a while. We may double or triple that number tonight, at least, as this system comes in.
Yeah, it'll be impacting the entire area this time. This morning's round was along and east of I-45.
This is an update that caught our attention.
It is. The Storm Prediction Center put out a newly updated day one outlook, so for this evening and overnight, of the storm threat. So it goes from level 1 being the least likely to number 5 being a high likelihood of severe weather. We're right in the middle now in our northwestern zones, Brenham over to Conroe, northwestern, Montgomery up to Huntsville, a level 3 or enhanced risk.
And notice how they look at the shape of this. It's
Boeing, yeah.
It's our friend, it's our bow. So they're picking up on the same idea that this bow shape of the line is indicating that, yes, it's straight line winds gusting 50, 60, 70 that are the greatest threat to property this evening. And here's a good rundown of the severe threats. It's really a little bit of everything on the table, but by far the greatest threat is the straight line wind, which we have at a medium-high threat.
And that's damaging because 60, 70 mile an hour winds could certainly break some tree branches down on the power lines.
Awnings.
Awnings could pick up airborne things in your yard, garbage cans.
These metal sheds, metal buildings. We have a lot of metal storage buildings around town. Those metal roofs, you get a little wind underneath, and they get peeled off as they kind of act like the sail on a sailboat.
Mm-hmm. And then we've got a large hail threat that's minimal. We're not so much concerned with hail. Tornadoes, talk a little bit about the gust-nado threat along that main line.
Back it up to the future track as the line is bowing into the area. So if we're going to see tornadoes tonight, they're not going to be your Kansas Tornado Alley supercell tornadoes. Those are the big ones. Those are EF3s, EF4s. If we're going to see a tornado, most likely in this scenario, they would develop right on the leading edge of these little bowed segments as it pushes in. And basically what you would be getting is sort of like a little eddy in a stream. A gust-nado is what we call them. They're the weakest of the tornadoes, EF0s, EF1s. Sometimes winds max out at 70 or 80 miles an hour. Doesn't sound like much, but yes, focused on a little tornado, a little funnel, and very quickly do roof damage and break glass. And so if we do get a warning tonight in your area, just stay hunkered down in your house, away from windows on the first floor, and that's the safest place to be.
An ongoing trend with this whole feature as it was moving in from the northwest is it's been speeding up.
Yeah.
That benefits us in the way of flooding. We're not looking at a flooding event. Some minor street flooding could be possible, nuisance flooding, but because it's moving so fast, it's not going to have enough time to put down a ton of rain.
And I'm very happy about that. That may be the best piece of news we've got, is that although we've got this wind threat, it's not going to sit on us and cause flash flooding. We get enough of that threat off and on each year, and I'm glad at least this one is not going to be that flood threat. But it will put it down enough to cause nuisance street ponding.
Right.
So the morning commute is going to be impacted, and it could be a real mess.
Yeah, a general 1 to 2 inches, I think, is what we're looking with that feature coming on through.
God bless you.
Bless you. Yeah, that scared me a little bit. All right, damage patterns. So let's talk a little bit about the difference between straight line wind damage and damage that you would see from a tornado. And it's kind of straightforward, the straight lines, because everything is blown in the same direction, in a straight line.
And when survey teams go out and they try to figure out what caused this damage, that's exactly what they're looking for. Are all the branches and trees blown over in one direction? That would be straight line winds,
Yep.
not a tornado, or
it would be chaotic. And you'd find a circular feature in the damage pattern. Like if a tornado dropped down in the middle of the forest, you would see the trees down in a circular or cyclonic area, which is kind of interesting when you see it from the air.
it's a real telltale sign that that's what you've got is a tight twist of the atmosphere. Okay, rain totals. 1.5, 2 inches of rain with this overnight. It's enough to get the yard wet, minor street ponding, but not a flash flood for that.
It's a brief car wash.
Yeah.
What it's going to be, it's going to come on through, it's going to pour very heavily, blinding downpours, but then it's out and gone.
And that's
it's the middle of the
nice.
night.
Right, and it's in the this is right. This is the best case scenario. Not everybody out driving, but if you know someone who's traveling this evening and traveling in between that midnight and 5 a.m. time frame, give them a call. Make sure they know what they're coming into. Maybe they spend the night outside of town or stop earlier so you don't have to be driving around. When it's dark and you do get some ponding, that's when things can get really dangerous. Turn around, don't drown plays into that.
So in conclusion, we're looking at that window opening up at midnight, lasting through around 5, 6 a.m., northwest to southeast. Now after that, by mid-morning, we're really seeing some big improvements in David. Those improvements build into a really nice weekend.
So we're going to save that for the 10 o'clock news. If you've got plans for this Memorial Day weekend, we've got graduations going on all over the place. We've got outdoor events planned.
Beach weather.
The beach. You're going to like what we're going to show you. In fact, you may be a little bit surprised at what's coming with this front coming in. So we'll show you what it means for temperatures, what it means for the weekend forecast. That'll be our live broadcast here in less than an hour at 10 o'clock. We'll see you then, Tim and I, for a live update.
I'm wondering if they're done. I'm guessing that's
I got to go down and tape.